Hello, my name is LoG. Welcome to part 2 of the string skipping power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instruction and material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below. And now let's get on to the lesson. All right, let's do a real quick recap of part 1, because a lot of the figures we were doing in there are also going to be here in part 2. So that sounded like this. So notice that last little bit right here. That was the end of part 1. That is the beginning of part 2. So that's how we're going to start. Just like part 1, we have 2 notes on the bottom, but then that first string skip is actually the downbeat. So you want to feel this note as beat 1. Bam, just like that. From here on out, the pattern is exactly the same until we get to the end. But these first 2 shapes, exactly the same configuration, 7-note grouping as we did in part 1. Sounds like this. That's the first one. Next one, right? Same exact idea, same kind of string skipping. First one notes are F sharp, G, F sharp, G, E, G, F sharp. So it kind of feels like we're implying this kind of G major 7 shape. This one's a little crammed. I might zoom in a little bit on my hand so you can really see what I'm doing. But after that one, go back a whole step, start on E, and you're playing E, F sharp, E, F sharp, D. Same beginning as we've been doing, except now we have a little bit of a transitional thing like we've done before. This time, after we play the D, come down what feels like a pentatonic scale, very similar to an earlier one. And we end like this. So after that D right there, come down B, A, F sharp, E, C natural, half step slide into C sharp, and then A sharp right here. Bam, that is the next downbeat, which starts the next phrase, which is slightly different. So let me play all of that nice and slow. Again, technically, play this however you want. Alternate pick, picking fingers, hammer-ons, completely up to you. One more time. Now, once we are here, and we do that little slide, this is actually a new group of notes. This is a 6-note grouping, which sounds like this if I just play it right here on this first phrase. That's the idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So what are we doing here? 2 notes on the bottom, 1 note up top, which is the downbeat, back to the low note, back to the top note, up to the next note on that same string. So in this case, we're kind of spelling out what feels like a sort of like an F sharp major arpeggio. So we have a slide C natural, C sharp, then A sharp, C sharp, A sharp, C sharp, just like that. If you're using pick and fingers, should be pretty obvious what to do. Finger, pick, finger, hammer on, that's what I'm playing. If you're using picking and hammer-ons, also should be pretty obvious. Pick, 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 hammer-on. If you're alternate picking, obviously it's going to be pretty straightforward. Now the thing about this phrase, as we continue, these are all groups of 6. So if you are practicing this power-up with straight alternate picking, as you continue through these patterns, your picking configuration will actually stay the same because it's now groups of 6. Earlier, it was groups of 7. That's an odd number, which offsets everything by a pick stroke. The first time you play it, it'll be a downstroke. The next time you repeat, it'll be an upstroke. That is not happening here because it's groups of 6. An even number means every time we restart the phrase, it's always going to be the same stroke. If we start on a downstroke for the first one, the next one will also start on a downstroke, making it a little bit easier to play this phrase. Even though we are jumping through the strings a little bit more, it doesn't offset the picking. So that's the first one. Just like that. Next one, same exact kind of structure, just the notes are different. Right? So we have E, F sharp, D, F sharp, D, F sharp like that. Notice my fingering in my left hand, I have a little, it's kind of a stretch from the pointer finger to the middle finger to play that whole step, mostly because I know I need to do this on the next string, on the G string. So if I did pointer ring and then tried pointer pinky, that feels a little odd for me. So I am doing it like this. You don't have to do that, but it helps me, so that's how I'm doing it. Let me play both of those phrases in a row. The first one, right into the next one. Again, groups of 6, so it should feel more even, right? I'm going to do it with pick and fingers right here. Should be pretty straightforward. I am alternate picking with my ring middle like I usually do. Here's alternate picking everything. Notice the picking stays the same. Notice when I do it like this and I make that jump to the higher string, it's a downstroke. 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 Again, doesn't change because this is groups of 6. So a little bit easier to alternate pick this section at least. So after that, we then have 2 notes on one string, 2 notes on another string. Pretty easy little figure. Sounds like this. Kind of like a sort of a chopped up diminished chord, I guess. So the notes are A sharp, C sharp, G, and then A sharp again on top. Play it without speeding up. So this one's pretty straightforward. I'm playing it with pick, hammer, pick, hammer. Of course, if you're alternate picking everything, you'll just alternate pick the whole thing. If you can do pick and fingers for sure. That would be pick, hammer on, then a finger, and then a hammer on. It's probably the easiest way to do it. Pretty straightforward. Don't need to talk about this one too much. Then after that, those 4 notes, we are then restarting the whole thing. Back to the very beginning, right? The very beginning, part 1. Started with that phrase, with this little hammer whole step on the G string, reaching up with the middle finger, that E, F sharp, D. We are ending part 2 with this phrase, but it's really the beginning of part 1. So when we play the whole entire video for the final, or the whole entire track for the final video, that is going to be the restart point where we do the whole thing over again. Okay, so let me play that second half one more time. Remember these 2 low notes? This note right here, that's the downbeat. Bam, just like that. One more time. And of course this, again, is the beginning of part 1. Again, always think about this in time. So when I'm playing this, my head nod is happening right there because that's the downbeat. I don't want to feel that as the downbeat or that as the downbeat because it's not. This is the downbeat. Very important for you to feel that downbeat, especially when you're trying to practice this by yourself. You know, if you're not ready to play with the track and you're just sitting here, playing kind of in your own time in your head, you have to always hear where that downbeat is. Because if you're practicing this thinking the downbeat is here, everything's not going to feel right when you turn on the track. You have to make sure you're feeling it, bam, right there. If you feel it there, things are going to feel a lot better. Notice my head now when I'm doing that. If your head is not nodding like that, it's not going to feel right in the configuration of the part, and when you try with the track, things will feel strange. So that's pretty much this whole thing. We'll play the whole thing one more time, first half and the second half, and you'll see how it all flows. One more time, a little slower. That's the whole thing. So we're going to play this backing track a little faster, I think 80 to 110. I actually can't remember. Hopefully that's correct. But yeah, practice this. Do what you need to do to get the parts. Experiment with whatever kind of picking configuration you want to use. Get the part down, come back to this part of the video, and we'll get on with this track. All right, that does it for part 2 of the string skipping power-up. As usual, if you enjoy this type of instructional material, feel free to check out my Patreon at the link below, and I'll see you all in the final part.